Hi, I'm Matt from HOCKEYREVIEWS.ca, and this is the Sherwood Morph Pro hockey gloves snapshot review. I borrowed these from a local store. Unfortunately, Hockey Stickman isn't doing the pro stock versions of these gloves. They still have a ton of these, so I'm guessing that's why they didn't go down that route. But we are going to compare this glove compared to the previous Rekker, a little bit compared to the code, and see if this is a solid glove. Sherwood has been making some pretty good gloves recently, so this one I'm kind of excited to take a look at. This glove, while being the top end glove, does come in at a slightly cheaper price. This is $219 compared to those like $300 gloves we've seen from Bauer and CCM that I've reviewed recently and haven't really liked all that much. So crazy price on this, especially for the Pro model. Do the 3D hand test on this as well to see overall fit size, as well as our textured grip test to see how good the palms are. So right off the bat, this is the Rekker glove, which previous versions were these, which were the Element gloves, and they had interesting little details on them, which are kind of gone on this one. Now, some comparisons that I want to show off on this really quickly, because there is some interesting things here, and I might get how Sherwood is able to keep the price down on this a bit. Thumbs, kind of similar overall design. They have their flex lock thumb, and because of this cuff comes off, you can see what that means. There's a little plastic piece in here that acts as like a hyper extension piece, so this part doesn't go further out, it gets stuck on your wrist. It is a 3-piece design, just like the other one right here, so you can see how this flexes and opens up. The interesting thing is this was segmented here, which this isn't segmented there, so you get a bigger piece of foam kind of right there on that. But then when we look at the side, you can see the amount of breaks and how that has changed, where on this side piece, it had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, kind of 6, 7 on it, and the new one has 1, 2, 3, 4. Interesting that they have really cut that down a lot. You can see how that actually like kind of acts on the glove. The Element gloves, which were these, have a fantastic kind of curve to them. It really matches your hand, whereas the new ones are kind of a bit blockier. As you can see, it doesn't really curve quite as much and is more kind of just tapers off. Now, when you put these on the side as well, you should really be able to see the difference between how this was designed. Having all these breaks and being a lot flatter really does kind of just follow your hand, I feel, a bit better, versus this, which feels like it kind of doesn't and juts in. Now, you do kind of have a pressure point on the thumb right here, where if you really squeeze in right here and get a shot like right there, you can feel that corner on your skin. It's not the end of the world. It's not the nicest thing. So stuff like that doesn't feel the nicest. Same with that, doesn't feel the nicest. It has been worse in other gloves, and it is much better than what the old Code V's were. And you also do have a different thumb piece on there as well, which is a bit bigger on the new one, which is good because I always thought this thumb was really tiny compared to other gloves. I never had issues getting slashed in this thumb, but it's just nice to have a little bit extra coverage on that. And the backhand as well kind of goes down the same thing, where the old one had 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, compared to now 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it is kind of, I'm gonna say, cost effective on this and kind of cheapening out a bit in terms of like losing some of this details. It's not the end of the world. This still works, but kind of disappointing to see that's the way Sherwood has gone. We saw Bauer and CCM do that in the past. Sherwood kind of going this route too. The fingers are the same though. You have 3-piece index and middle finger, 2-piece ring and pinky finger. So very similar there. The side piece is very similar as well, with a really weird like glued on thing here, and it's kind of scratched off, as you can see a little bit. This is a weird piece that feels kind of cheap. It almost feels like they just put a little sticker on it that will come off. It's kind of interesting looking with the Morph text on it, which I think will look better on the stick, as well as your index finger. You do have that 3 little pieces on there, which is very, very good and basically industry leading, in my opinion, for actual finger protection on there. So really solid. Not quite as good as the Warrior ones that kind of take up all this, but it goes longer than the Warrior one, so it's better in that sense. Now, cuff rolls are also very different, as you can see. Now, this glove is a 15, so it does look a little bit bigger, but you can notice a massive difference in overall design. So a lot has been reshaped there, as well as the upper cuffs. A lot have been reshaped as well. This was very open like this and really floaty, but this was also slightly different because on the retail one, this was a flex cuff that like had a Velcro piece that was tight and kind of flexed with you. This is not the case on this one. This one is a lot less floaty, and this piece is more connected into the sides like this versus the top, where this was connected at the bottom. Still have the actual stitch on graphics, which their pro stock versions also have. I think it's a very similar finish, if not identical, so that's nice to see, whereas a bunch of other companies have kind of cheapened out on that. Palms are also very different, and we'll do a palm test later. You no longer have the Kevlar in here, which I hated on these gloves. Hockey Stickman now offers these without Kevlar, and the Code ones right here also did not have Kevlar, so it was really nice in terms of palm feel like that. Obviously the Kevlar ends up lasting longer and is more durable, but the feel is crap. So it's nice to see that these are just AX suede. Good on that sense as well. Now the liner is also slightly different. They still use their microband, which is put on here somewhere. And the other ones were COP R29, which use copper threads. And one thing that is gone on here compared to the old one is that liner, which was this really weird plastic thing in here. As you can see, this was like the extra protection pieces, which is really odd. It's gone. It is just a normal liner back here. So interesting that Sherwood has gone that route as well. Now, before we end this comparison between these two, so for mobility and dexterity, last gen, you just feel like they are kind of looser, softer to move around. You can see how the backhands break. You can notice it a lot more on this one because it is only a 4-piece versus this, which is, there are some pieces on here that are kind of useless. This piece right here could have just been connected because it really doesn't all do that much, and it's so tiny that it's not that great. And really, I think you could have kind of extended these a little bit just to get a bit better finger coverage there. But you can see that on the new one as well. But for like the backhand and dexterity on it, the old one does definitely feel better in terms of this. The thumb on the new one moves easier than what on the old one does. You can see how much more that is kind of moving in. Now, tiny thing in the top of this is moving as well. So not an issue there at all, but this one does feel like the thumb has been adjusted a little bit and works a little bit better in that sense. But overall, I would prefer the kind of break and dexterity of the old glove versus the new one. Check out the links in the description as well as the pinned comment to Aycane. Click that link and use the coupon code and you'll get a discount, which helps support the channel. It gives me a kickback so I can keep making more content and doing more videos. So you're buying hockey stuff, in this case, base layers or clothing, and it helps support the channel so I can keep making more purchases and doing more reviews. And if you want to support the channel without buying hockey specific things or these base layers, you can always support the channel through Buy Me a Coffee and Patreon. Everything through any of those links always comes back into the channel and it is greatly appreciated. Now I'm going to go into all the information on these. I just wanted to compare them to the old one to kind of see a difference between the two. So going back to this thumb piece, the graphic thing on here is actually very interesting. It's like a silicone rubberized feeling thing. It's pretty understated because it is just black and kind of like a gray. I like the look of this. Obviously it's not very pro stock. The pro stock one is just kind of that design, but it's kind of nice. And for a retail glove, this is a very interesting piece. I'm kind of a fan of it. Now, one thing I was complaining about Sherwood gloves in the past is the lack of plastics in here. So that's still there. So this has no plastic and this has no plastic either. The whole point of that is that there's plastic behind it. So you get this protection going through it. So you don't really need the plastic right on here. But when you take a stick or a puck and you go like that, you do really wish that had a bit more plastic in there. It would just be more protective as well, it'd be an extra layer. So it's disappointing that they still do that there. Everywhere else on here is pretty solid for actual foam package and plastic. You have inserts here, inserts here, inserts here, and this foam behind it is very dense at the top with a softer density below it. Inserts here, all over here, all have that insert as well as on the fingers here. And compared to that Bauer, which you could fold in half, this one doesn't move all that much. Now the foam package on this as well, they call it their Elite Pro Shield, I guess, for this back piece, but for the actual foam package itself, you have a softer density foam under here, which is actually, I'll show it compared to the other one. It feels like it is an upgrade and is more dense. You have a pretty dense on top, and then you have a pretty decent plastic insert on top as well for overall a pretty solid foam package. Whereas on the old one, it was a much softer. So I do this and it squeezes in much more, but it had a much denser piece on top and then a plastic insert. This one feels like the top piece is a little less dense, but it has more dense below, less dense, and then plastic. So overall pretty solid. The sides as well, plastic inserts through both all these pieces right here with a little bit of foam on it, and same with on this piece as well, which I absolutely love that being there, because when you wrap your hand around like this, you sometimes get sticks up here, and that gives you really solid protection up here. So when people kind of stick lift and jab, you have that, which is an excellent touch, and I love that feature on Sherwood gloves. They're very, very good at it. Now, I mentioned the backhand as well, and this kind of leads into the finger breaks, but for overall like mobility and dexterity, I mentioned the thumb is good. The backhand is just disappointing. Now, I get why they're doing this. They're cutting down on overall size. Companies also say the bigger blocks are more protective. I don't really believe it. It is what it is. They have their nitrix on here, which I think is the foam that they're using. This is okay. You can see how it breaks with your hand. It will break more over time as well, like this, but look at those gaps. Obviously a stick really or a puck isn't probably going to go in these gaps, but it's a possibility. And you can see that's not the nicest thing ever. And with a toe that's not broken, could theoretically get in there with your hand closed on it. This isn't the end of the world, and this is still okay. We've seen companies like Bauer go really kind of smaller and smaller pieces back here, as well as CCM compared to what they had before. And that's frankly just the piece with Sherwood as well. These code gloves, which were still, I guess, the current live generation because they're still code gloves, are a lot more, as you can see, intricate back here. The top level ones had a shield for protection over top. This one obviously doesn't. The difference between these is pretty disappointing. Now, the one kind of complaint of this, if you do squeeze it this way, you can see how the glove breaks that way. So when you do this, at least you have like not a single break and it zigzags, so you have that overlap. But overall, this is not as good as it used to be and is disappointing. There is some gaps here, but not a ton. This moves down okay. I would have liked to see one of these things right here between the fingers to kind of help with that, or put it up here to kind of help this part kind of come down a bit. It's okay, and overall protection on this back plate and everything is pretty good. It's not that bad, but it's honestly not that great either. And when you do it compared to on the back of this, this is honestly much better. So pretty disappointing that whatever they've done on back here actually does have a pretty big change based on here, where this glove felt better than what this Morph Pro does. And just for comparison's sakes, we are going to grab the code, which was also a Pro Sock with air quotes one, and it does even have that sewn label, which that also does better than what is on the new Morph Pro. So I don't know what the difference really behind here is, because these feel like they're pretty similar in terms of overall like padding on here. Maybe the top layer on this is a bit more dense, but feeling that, it shouldn't be a big difference, but actually feeling it on your hand, it felt like a big difference, which is very disappointing. And when we're at this stage, you can see it's not really gonna get on there. The top piece right here is okay, it's not great, but for the finger test, it's fine, nothing too bad there. It's just as good as these, so no issue. The thumb we did, the cuff is not great. The cuff on this one, also not great. I think the cuff on the Morph Pro is slightly better. The fingers, also being a 3-piece finger, don't really feel like the design has changed all that much. These ones felt like they're always kind of slightly on an angle. So hopefully you can kind of see that, especially this one right here. And that's the same case up there as well. There's no real problem with them. They work really well. They're very mobile and everything, so no issues with that design. When you get onto the cuff, you can see there's this like TPU right here, which is a very, very similar design to what Warrior has been doing. And it's slightly slanted up like that. Purpose of that is the cuff goes over and slides over like that. Now the problem is it doesn't really work all that well here, but this cuff is also super loose, which I'll get to in a second. But when we go on to the one that's like more proper, it doesn't really move all that good over the backhand. You can see it's not really sliding all that much, especially compared to those Warriors and other ones. It is moving, so it's not the end of the world, but it definitely could be better. And when we go on the sides, it doesn't really move at all. And the side doesn't really have that kind of slope on it, as you can see. So disappointing in that sense. And I think Sherwood could really slope this piece as well and have some overlap of this cuff. So if you pull this cuff up a bit more, their other gloves weren't even that sloped all that much either. As you can see, this cuff was also pretty loose, but when you put it on, it did come over pretty good. And it was just like this part that worked really well versus this one that works fine there, doesn't do anything on the side. This one, the side is totally fine. And when we get to the one that isn't broken, the back just doesn't feel like it moves nearly as much as what it did on the old Rekkers. So it's kind of sad that it went that way as well, because you can see how much that moves. And that is kind of similar to what is happening on this one, but not similar to what is happening on this one, where this one's not really moving at all. So weird in that sense. And I think it could definitely be better, especially on the sides. And just, I really wish they overlap this more to have more protection. If you have this foam kind of over top of this completely and kind of sitting on top, almost more like that, you'll get some more protection on there too. So it's okay, but it isn't the best in that sense. Now, looking at this cuff, it is a pretty decently dense foam. Like, this is a pretty solid density on it. It doesn't feel like there's a plastic insert anywhere. We can't fold it in half like we could the CCM glove. So you go like this, and it really doesn't fold in half like that. It is decent density all around, so it's not that bad for it, which is interesting because it definitely feels like it is, well, this has a plastic insert in it. So right there's a plastic insert. So that is a downgrade compared to these. And this glove didn't have the plastic insert because this one was the more budget one. It was a TMP1, not the TMP Pro. So kind of makes sense in that sense. But this one, the TMP1, is closer to what these Morph Pros are. And I really feel like that cuff needs that plastic insert for better protection on there. You can really feel it through it. So another really disappointing piece of this cuff, and I mentioned, is how loose it is. So you can see how much this moves compared to what this one is, where it doesn't move nearly as much. And this one moves so much you can see the entire thumb part pop out of it. I don't know what is missing on this, but something stitched here just didn't work totally right. And when you look at like the sides here, they look like they're all stitched in the right spot. And I'm not really sure how this happened, but look how much more open this cuff becomes. You can just pull it all away. But now that I keep coming back to this one is now loosening up more too, and to the point where you can pull the thumb out. So I think this is just overall kind of a bad design. Yes, this is going to be more flexible-ish, but it's opening up gaps, and you really want this cuff to be a bit tighter in that. Now onto the inner cuffs, we actually have a more dense foam right here than what we had previously on their gloves, which you could see was very floppy, but this was always kind of an extra kind of protection piece and not the main piece, which is the case here too. It is an extra piece, but nice density throughout there, and I'm a fan of that all the way through. And then you have this piece right here with the Morph Pro logo, which isn't connected here and is connected at the tops. I'm not sure why it's not connected there, but I actually really do like the old version better. So while this part kind of works, you can see how it really doesn't flex out all that much and almost needs to be like tilted in, and it kind of just gets in the way of things, especially when you have elbow pads on. Whereas this one, because it is so much more looser, it will just move around with your stuff without an issue at all. And when you do like a really bulky cuff like these FT6 Pro tests, you can see this one goes over top, and because it has that very open and flex cuff, it doesn't get in the way. Whereas this is a smaller overall cuff because it's a 14, and I noticed this. Like this is hitting it and it's not getting out of the way, whereas at least this one, it hits it and it really gets out of the way, so it's not really an issue. This one hits it and it kind of becomes annoying, and I can feel it getting in the way. This is a massive elbow pad that gets in the way of a lot of gloves, but the other one is the perfect example of how this being that big, even though it's overlap, it's not really an issue at all. And this one definitely is. Now, continuing on that cuff, I mentioned this under cuff, and this is, I think, the perfect example of just like why. I get having this connected to keep a little bit more protection on there, but it would have been nicer to be like this one, which is more loose and open and just allows it to flex down more. You see a bunch of Pro Stock gloves like this, which just open up and really allow that to flex. You really don't need this connected, especially when the cuff doesn't really flex all that much with you and barely kind of goes anywhere. Just cut this, open this up a bit, you get less restriction, and honestly, you lose that need for the flex cuff piece and you hold that part, and it just makes it better overall. I like flex cuffs, but these aren't really flex cuffs, and it's really just detrimental to the overall design. But at least they do have this small piece for padding as well, which I've liked on Sherwood gloves for a bit now. Previously, as you can see, it opened up more on other ones. This one is a little bit tighter, so it feels like it doesn't really open up all that much. The inner liner now has microband applied to it. It does have a different material on this piece, which is the same material as the liner. Now, this is a case where I feel like I would prefer microband to go down here. Maybe this is coated with microband as well, but this material is definitely feels softer to the touch. At least it feels a bit smoother and nicer to the touch, so I would have preferred that to go all the way through. Maybe this other material is a bit more grippy, which it does feel like. So maybe that's just so that the glove is more locked into your hand. Maybe that's the point of it. It's kind of sad to see them abandon their whole COP R29 thing, which we use copper in things so it doesn't hold into microbes and bacteria. It's kind of sad that they've abandoned that completely on these, but they have. And now we're at the microband stuff. The inner liner here, you have a little bit on the thumb, which is nice. And it kind of helps a bit with that thumb pinch that I talked about. And you take that out and you can really feel it a lot more on there, to be honest. So even though this is pretty small and not that thick, it does do some dampening on that. Backhand pad is okay for thickness, nothing major. A little bit of dampening on there. Interesting to see they pulled out the plastic piece that I talked about. I hate this thing for some reasons because like you can't pull the stuff out easy and it kind of gets stuck, but it does work and it does actually protect, it seems like. And sad that that's gone, and this could be a bit thicker or maybe a better material. It says they're nitrix foam. Would have been nice to have that back there. Maybe it is. It doesn't really feel anything special. It just feels like a really soft and low density foam. Now getting onto the palm and the fingers. The palm is their AX suede, which has been there for a while. This is a very similar design, what they've kind of dumbed for a while in terms of AX suede and like the Sherwood over here. Gone is that Kevlar, which I talked about, which is very nice. So you have now a full overlay all here, and this is totally fine and pretty standard for retail, so fine with that. They have some textured things down here for graphics, which don't really matter. They do have some venting holes on the fingers, which I'm a huge fan of. This is standard AX suede stuff. It feels pretty good and feels like nice and good enough. It's nothing crazy. It's not super thin, especially with the double layer palm, not super thin either. When you look at the inside, you can kind of see some of the palm design. and you can see where the thumb piece is split right there on that stitching, and then you can see where the overlay is. Nothing crazy going on here, pretty standard with that thumb overlay as well. Now, when we do our textured grip test, it's gonna be just the same as all our companies with AX Suede right now. On the actual overlay itself, you can't really feel the texture, which is to be expected. Now, one thing I'm noticing, because of the finger spandex, you can see how the finger keeps rolling over. I'm noticing that a lot, and I can feel it a lot when I'm doing this. So it would be slightly annoying. Do you notice it when you're playing? Honestly, just going like this, I'm really noticing it. So that's awkward, and maybe a bit too thick of spandex on here, like too tall. That's causing that issue and not quite tight enough. When it is flat, I actually can't even get the middle finger flat. Can you feel the texture through it? And again, this is just rolling. So it's really hard to get this to actually work correctly. Okay, pinky works. Sort of. It doesn't work that way. This is crazy. I can't believe this is happening. When I put on the old glove, did this happen? I never noticed this before at all. Nope, didn't happen at all. It moves, but it doesn't roll over. So crazy that this is happening on the new one. And when I put on the other code one, does it happen at all? It moves, but it doesn't roll over to the side. So you can actually still feel it. Well, it does right there, but I've never noticed this once when playing with it. And you can actually feel the texture in the fingers itself. I'm gonna try the other glove just to see if this is a fluke, but I can't really test it that much on that one. Same thing. So both of these just roll so quickly over that you can, I mean, I can feel this texture on spandex, but spandex isn't the palm part. I haven't been like really disappointed in a glove quality in a while. So it's really sad that Sherwood has managed to do that. But again, go try this one more time. I can slightly tell the texture on the fingers when it doesn't roll over like this. Honestly, doesn't feel all that great. Like it feels like it might be slightly thicker, but it doesn't look thicker. So I can't really tell if that is just because I can't really get a good grip on the palm or the fingers when I'm doing this and it's moving too much for me to really feel the texture. On the thumb, I can surprisingly feel the texture, but not actually on the thumb piece itself. I can feel the bumps on this right here. So I can feel when those bumps hit the nylon binding, but I can't actually feel on the thumb itself. So if I do it just on the thumb, I can't really feel that texture. It feels pretty flat. There's a little bit of feel to it, but not a ton. And because these fingers are just so bad at rolling over, I can't even feel the texture there at all. So if I really test this like this, I can feel the grip and I can feel the texture piece on it. But when I actually hold it like I normally would, I'm having problems. So can you feel it? Yeah, it's kind of a retail. It feels a bit worse than most retail, which is surprising. But this is so loose that it's causing a ton of problems. Now, speaking of that, the gussets are obviously spandex gussets. And you can see the problems I had with them and how they're all over the place. This is insane. When I put on the other glove, look at the difference between this. It doesn't roll nearly as much. This thing, like if I hold this, this is nuts how thick that is. This is nowhere near the length. Again, look at how much spandex that is there versus this. And these are 15s. I've never noticed this issue wearing gloves before, and I noticed it testing this, which is not a good outlook on that. And you want to support the channel, and you need a base layer and a protective, kind of supportive base layer that helps protect your growing as well as your hips. Check out the Cortec. This is the Pro 1.0 pant, so this one is not quite as restrictive, and this is kind of tight right here in this X pattern. You might have seen these as Under Armour before, or Bauer for the hockey specific ones. There's also the Core 3.0, which is a lot stiffer, as you can see. Really helps protect my growing and keeping it kind of in place and make sure it doesn't overstretch itself. There's a discount code, and you click the link in the description. Use that discount code to get a discount off, help support myself, as well as get you some pretty awesome base layer pants that really do help with injury prevention and help stabilize your core while playing. Now, for the 3D hand test, we'll put our 15-inch 3D printed hand and our 14-inch 3D printed hand into these to see how big the fingers are and how this glove fits. I kind of already know because I wore them and I can tell how it is, but we'll do this test so we have the standard for it. So we put the 14-inch in the left and the 15-inch in the right, and on the right you can see fingers are blowing past the tips here. Now this was also one of the hardest gloves I've ever got to get the fingers in. I think it's because of just how loose those spandex pieces are for the gussets. So that is interesting in that sense, but the 15-inch hand, fingers are coming through, fingers are coming through. Fingers are right at the end right there, and we go to the 14 and coming at the end, but totally fine, and coming at the end, totally fine. I knew these gloves were going to fit kind of true to retail because when I'm wearing them, they're too small lengthwise, and you can kind of see that here with the 14s are near the end. This one is not really blowing by, it's just near the end, but the 15 one is really coming through it as expected. And I have 3 pairs of Sherwood gloves here, so it is something I totally knew. So they do fit just like other retail gloves where the 14 Sherwoods fit like 14 CCM, as well as Bauer, specifically for Vapor and Supreme ones, as well as Jet Speed and Tax. The 4 rolls are a bit different, but that's about it. So when I put this on myself, you can see how much more my finger blows out of this. When I put the 15 ones of these on, my finger's right at the end, right? Not really blowing out though, where this one is. Now, if I stretch this, it's even more. So just comfortable, my finger's right here versus my finger is right coming past it. Definitely a traditional fit in terms of lengthwise on here for actual fit profile. These are their anatomical, more tighter fitting glove. I don't know what they advertise it as. I think it's tighter, but the difference between the codes, which are more squared off and more of that Tax and Vapor kind of fit, is more looser overall. So when you do this test, you can see the code, it takes a bit more to come off, and the new Rekkers are much tighter overall and kind of in the cuff as well too. You can see how that is. So it's a bit more tighter throughout that cuff and backhand. My preference for fit is more this tighter fit, but that's obviously a personal preference thing, and these ones weren't too bad with that. Now, the interesting thing here is the weight between these 2 gloves. This older version in a 15 actually feels lighter than this one in a 14. Now, I don't know exactly how or why. This one feels more protective. Maybe that's that backhand plastic piece being super light, but this cuff is also super light as well. There's absolutely nothing here when there is some actual heft behind part of this cuff, but this inner cuff here is worse than what was on this one. So kind of crazy that this glove feels a bit heavier than this one, and yet it is a smaller glove. Weight doesn't really matter though. These aren't heavy by any means and are totally fine. Now, one thing I'm sad that I can't test on here is the breathability on here. Somehow this glove felt like a Jet Speed glove with holes through it that really vented it like the CCM AirTech does. It was fantastic playing with it. It really felt like it cooled your hands. This, I don't know. I can't tell. Can't bring it on the ice, unfortunately, to really test it out. So that is disappointing in that sense. So overall, I was really hoping and expecting Sherwood to knock this out of the park with the Morph Pro, especially for the price point compared to FT8 Pros, Bauer, Flylights. This is $219, which is a solid price. This glove has been a sad downgrade, and I am extremely sad that this is the case. Normally, Sherwood gloves are very easy to recommend. This one was solid. I tell people to go get it at Hockey's Command all the time. Same with this one, but this has been just a downgrade. You have worse backhand. You can see you have less pieces. The side piece right here, while normally I'm like, oh, this is too complicated, you can simple it down, which they did, but it doesn't really work all that well. You can see just how it doesn't really fit the actual hand profile all that much and kind of pushes in here. The cuff is hilariously bad on both of them now. After I broke it in a little bit, this one comes off quite a lot too right here, which shouldn't happen. Just disappointing how this is, and the protection on this cuff is bad. The backhand protection on this was worse than what this one was, and this is the newer glove. On one hand, with these gloves, I almost want to give Sherwood the benefit of the doubt in that there's just some manufacturing issue with these cuffs being way too loose and all over the place, and this spandex being way too big and getting caught up when you're holding a stick. The whole point of me doing these reviews, and especially if they're snapshot reviews like this, where I grab this off of a shelf, is that this was a product that is for sale right now on a shelf of a local store. This is the end result of the quality of that product. Obviously, is something I can't recommend, and I really can't give them the benefit of the doubt. I really haven't seen gussets like this before. It is pretty nuts. They use a different material than this spandex before on these ones, which as you can see is slightly different, but they did have this style of material on these previous ones, and you can see the gussets on these are much smaller than the gusset on this. I really can't give them the benefit of the doubt there. Maybe this is a poor manufacturing thing where these just didn't really pass QC, or there's just mistakes in them. Unfortunately, I can't recommend these regardless. Now, if Sherwood wanted to send me another pair and have me take a look at them and see if this is fixed, I would happily do so, and I would add a new video to this and put it in the comments if it was better. But from this one, which is straight from the shelf, there's no way I can recommend this at all, and these are a very poor showing. The other frustrating thing is I have been recommending Sherwood gloves for generations now. The original 50/30 Hall of Fame 4 rolls were a stupidly good price. I did videos of them in the past. The Code V gloves were a stupidly good price, and I did videos of those and said how good they were, and the biggest fault really was a thumb piece on them and the cuff protection, which they fixed the thumb on the next generation. So Sherwood has done a lot of really solid, especially for the price, unreal budget gloves, including these ones, which I still recommend all the time. time, but these are just not it at all, and it is very, very disappointing to see them go that route. So that's about it for this video. Thank you very much for watching this video. Hopefully it was helpful. If you end up buying a piece of gear from one of my reviews, like these Sherwood gloves, please let companies like Sherwood know on social media that Hockey Reviews content help you make a purchase, gets me on their radar more, so hopefully I can make more content and do more on ice reviews and not just snapshot reviews like these. If you want to see me review a specific piece of gear, like the Sherwood Morph stick, for example, let those companies know on social media that you want to see Hockey Reviews make their content on their equipment. Again, gets me on their radar, hopefully, so I can hopefully do more on ice reviews and make content. And you can check out the full actual review of this glove, which will have that code, and I guess I'll put it in the comments as well at Hockey Command. This is just a better glove overall. I don't get a kickback from that or anything. I'm just trying to get you a better deal, and these are cool colors, and it's a much better glove than what this one is. So go do that. Thank you very much for watching this video. Subscribe to YouTube, follow me on Instagram and TikTok. Links are in the description. If you want to support the channel and you're buying hockey equipment anyways, you can check out the links in the description. If you're in Canada, to just hockey. If you're in the US, to pure hockey. Clicking those links and making a purchase gives me a kickback to help support the channel so I can keep buying more gear and doing more on ice reviews. Otherwise, if you want to support the channel without buying anything hockey specifically, you can check out the links in the description to Patreon and buy me a coffee. Anything through any of those links always comes back into my channel so I can keep making more content and doing more reviews. Thank you very much for watching, and take it easy.
You're watching HOCKEYREVIEWS.ca.